property and the loan balance. Usually the loan balance is higher than the value of the property. So after the property is sold, sales proceeds are applied to the loan balance, a dollar amount remains owing. That dollar amount that is still owed is called a deficiency balance. One of the standards you're going to use, or you should be using, in evaluating alternatives is whether or not the alternative exposes you to an obligation to pay the deficiency balance. One thing should be crystal clear at this point in time is if you're not making payments on your home loan, the bank is the one in control. They're the ones that get to decide whether or not your house gets sold. And if they sell it, are you going to be obligated to pay the deficiency balance?
Yes.
Well, that maybe not. Maybe not. It's going to vary. The answer to that question is going to vary from person to person. It's going to vary from person to person. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Discretionary. Oh, I love that word. It is not a legal word, but it's a good word. And for that reason, I introduce it. Okay, discretionary. Having or using the ability to act or decide according to your own discretion or judgment. It's the power of choice. Who has the power of choice? That's what discretion means. You're going to hear me use that word over and over and over again. Learn that word, because if you can understand the meaning of that word, you will develop clarity as to how all of this comes together. If you don't understand the word discretion, it's going to be difficult for you to follow. Okay, because discretion, by and large part, lies with one of the two parties. And I'll give you a hint. It's not the borrower. It's usually the lender. When the borrower's not paying, the lender has discretion as to what they're going to do about it. Okay, next slide. Okay, in California, we have two types of foreclosure. There's something called a judicial foreclosure, and there's something called a non-judicial foreclosure. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, a foreclosure is not necessarily a bad thing. Not necessarily. Now, a judicial foreclosure takes place inside of the courtroom. Judicial, inside the courtroom. Kind of makes sense. A non-judicial foreclosure, does not take place in the courtroom. Since a judicial foreclosure takes place inside the courtroom, the lender has to hire lawyers, which makes it expensive. Because it's taking place inside the courtroom, it takes a while. So it's slow. Judicial foreclosures are slow and expensive. A non-judicial foreclosure, on the other hand, since it does not take place in the courtroom, the lender is not required to hire lawyers, so it's less expensive. And since it's not taking place in the courtroom, it's quicker. So a non-judicial foreclosure is quick and cheap. A judicial foreclosure is slow and expensive. So if you're the lender, which of the two are you going to choose? You're the non-judicial. The non-judicial. For that reason, the vast majority of foreclosures are non-judicial. They are non-judicial. If any of you face a foreclosure, the odds are, statistically speaking, you're going to face a non-judicial foreclosure. It is possible that you could see a judicial foreclosure, but it's not probable. Possible, but not probable. Okay. Next slide. The out-of-court foreclosure, the non-judicial foreclosure, the one that most of you would probably see. It's a very informal process, ladies and gentlemen. It involves two letters and your property sold. Two letters and your property sold. Just like that. Just like that. The first letter The non-judicial foreclosure process starts with that first letter. That first letter is called a notice of default. It's called a notice of default. Now, the lenders will thereafter are obligated to wait a minimum of 3 months before they send the second letter. A minimum of 3 months. Now, they can wait longer than 3 months. They just can't send the second letter any sooner than 3 months. It's discretionary with the lender if they choose to wait longer than 3 months. Okay? Then the second letter goes out. The second letter is called a notice of sale. Inside of the notice of sale, it says on this date, at this location, at this time, your house is going to be sold. And it will have a date. It will have a sale date inside of that letter. That sale date can be no sooner than 20 days from the date of the letter. It can be longer, it just can't be any sooner. Now, to a certain degree, it's discretionary with the lender now as to how much notice you're going to receive, how much time it's going to take for this foreclosure process to take. And because of that word discretion, you will see variance from household to household as to how long that foreclosure process actually takes. You will see one household run through the foreclosure process inside of 4 months, and you will see other households where the homeowners stay in the house for 2 years. And you may say, well, that's just not fair. That's just not fair. And what did our parents tell us when we were growing up about life being fair? Life's not fair. Don't worry about the equity of life. Worry about you and your family. Because the bank is not worrying about the equity of life. The bank is focused on getting their money. And you're standing in the way. Okay. Next slide. Now here's the, remember I said a little bit ago, a non-judicial foreclosure is not necessarily a bad thing. I also referenced California Code of Civil Procedure Section 580D. D is in David. And under 580D, if you experience a non-judicial foreclosure, then as to that corresponding loan, you have no obligation to pay. That's one of those exceptions we were talking about. It's kind of important to know that, right? That's kind of important to know that. What about junior lien holders? What's a junior lien holder? You've probably heard of people, or you may even be one of those people, where you've seen more than one loan on a house. More than one loan on a house. You guys have heard of that, right? Well, who's entitled to their money first? There is an order. We call them in first position. Yeah, whoever's in first position. Usually it's the guy that's in first position is usually the guy, not always, but usually the guy that's doing the foreclosing. And if he's the guy doing the foreclosing, then you may have a problem with your junior lien holder, the guy that didn't do the foreclosure. Not if you have more than one loan on a property, those banks don't get together and conspire to foreclose on your property together. They don't do that. It usually have one lender or the other is doing the foreclosing. 580D under the Code of Civil Procedure only helps you as to the foreclosing lender. You may have liability as to the non-foreclosing lender. This is something you got to concern yourself with. Okay, next slide. Out-of-court foreclosure. Non-judicial foreclosure. You have something called a right of reinstatement. the right of reinstatement. It's a statutory right. And what it means is this: you have the right to bring your loan current, and you get to keep your property. You got to pay all outstanding amounts owed, past payments, property taxes,